Assalamu alaikum and welcome once again to another webinar presented by the Collective Nine and the Ministry of Education. Of course, today we'll be discussing. Assalamu alaikum and welcome. And of course, today we'll be discussing Saturday school, and we have a few special guests that we'll introduce you to. But before we do that, we want to start off with our opening prayer. I seek refuge in Allah against the curse of Satan. In the name of Allah, the beneficent, the merciful. All praises belong to Allah, the Lord of all the world, the beneficent, the merciful. So, Master, their judgment. The alone do we worship, and thine aid we seek. Allah, show us the straight way. The way of those who not bestowed our favors, not of those whose wrath has been brought down, nor those who go astray. Ameen. In the name of Allah, who came in the person of Master Farad Muhammad, we can never thank you enough for raising up the most honorable Elijah Muhammad, the exalted Christ, and leaving us with a divine reminder, leader, teacher, and guide, and no other than the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan. And it is in their names that we welcome you and thank you in the greeting words of peace. Assalamu alaikum. Of course, as I mentioned before, we are on to continue our discussion from Savior's Day. This is in the same spirit, but we want to utilize modern technology and not allow Savior's Day to be the only time in which we can engage in dialogue, but not just dialogue, but dialogue all the time. I am Brother Troy, and I have joining me today as my co-host, Sister Deborah Muhammad, and I'm going to pass the microphone on to her. Just want to, and she'll take you through the program, and I'm looking at those who are logged in via the Collective Nine. I encourage you to please share this link via social media. The preferred link is thecollective9.org/Saturday Schools. Thank you, and I'm passing it to Sister Deborah.
Thank you. In the name of Allah, the Beneficent, the Merciful, I bear witness that there is no God but Allah, who appeared to us in the person of Master Farad Muhammad, and I further bear witness that the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad is the eternal leader of the nation of Islam, and that the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan is our divine reminder, warner, and mercy in our midst. Assalamu alaikum. We thank you once again for joining us as we continue with Savior's Day, the Savior's Day workshop. And our initiative is building our schools. And of course, we have talked about from Savior's Day, we went over, opening schools from Muhammad Universities of Islam, opening affiliate schools and charter schools that are based on the teachings of the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad. And last month, we highlighted homeschooling. And so the final and last alternative to having an education that is rooted in the teachings of the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad is a Saturday school program, which serves as an enrichment program for students who don't have the opportunity to have a Muhammad University of Islam education. They may go to public school or go to other private schools that where they don't get the teachings of the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad. So it's an enrichment not only for the students, but also for the parents. We have a special treat for us today, coming up after our first guest presenter, and we want to jump right into it. But before we jump into it, we are asking that everyone please go to the Collective Nine on the YouTube channel and please subscribe. We want to get our subscribers up. We have original content, and we'll keep bringing you more information about education based on the teachings of the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad. Well, first of all, we have Sister Kavan Muhammad, who's coming from Fort Worth, Texas, and she will be joining us today. And Sister Kavan Muhammad is the mother of, I think, 5 or 6 young men. She looks like a teenager herself. Sister Kavan she serves as a student captain in the city of Fort Worth, and she also has been the director of the MUI, and she's very passionate about the Saturday school programs. So what we're going to do is that we're going to have Sister Kavan come off of mute, and then we're going to have her give us a little information about herself, and then we're going to go into a brief presentation of a program that she, along with some other believers, put together on a Saturday school program. So I would like to welcome Sister Kavan. Sister Kavan?
Yes, ma'am. Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam, ma'am. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for inviting me. It is definitely a pleasure and an honor. And you know I love you. Well, I want to start off with, in the name of Allah, the beneficent, the merciful, I bear witness that there is no God but Allah, and that Muhammad is his messenger. And I like to greet you in the Greek words peace. Assalamu alaikum. I'm very excited, and this is very new to me. So please bear with me. And I'm nervous. This is great. Well, I just want to tell you a little bit about myself. Yes, my name is Sister Kavan Muhammad, and I have six sons. I also have an older daughter, four grandchildren, and I've worked in the public school for 20 years. I've been working, we had schools here. I've helped to create our own school, MUI affiliate, and we've had Saturday schools off and on for a number of years. Right now, I currently am the directress of my own school that I started, my husband and I, with the help of Allah, called Voluntary Gifts Manhood Training Academy. I resigned from the district last July, and we are about to celebrate 1 year, be it the will of Allah, May 25th, which is our last day of school. So it is MUI based. We wear uniforms. Right now, I'm in my classroom, and I'm really passionate about our children learning the knowledge of themselves, really building a nation, whether we're in the mosque or not, because we're a nation. So some of the things that we've done here in this city as a unit, because you can't do anything by yourself, is to create community programs, to build coalitions, and to really establish a network so that we could provide opportunities for our children to be educated. Um, I just really, right now, we're working on a program. We have a guest speaker. We're going to have a youth conference weekend after next. Brother Nuri is coming, and we're having a youth conference at one of the high schools here. We have an organization that's a nonprofit called Crescent Voluntary Gifts, where we go into the schools as a mentor program. So we have the Save Our Girls, which was started by Sister Sandy, and we also have another male training organization called Brothers and Sisters with Pride. So we're hosting a youth conference. Brother Noor is going to speak. So we're really excited about that. We also have another mentorship program that meets on Saturdays called Save Our Girls, and that's out of an apartment complex. So we've been working, trying to educate our children. I'm sorry, Brother Troy said I need to speak louder. Thank you. We've been working really hard, educating our children, building, and really studying sustainability. How do you continue to grow and build regardless of trials and tribulations that happen in your life? So, one of the big initiatives that Sister Deborah gave us, the Saturday School Initiative, committee, was to create a 6 month Saturday school curriculum. And I really, really thought that it was going to be super easy and we would be done with this really quickly. Well, I was wrong. And that was 2016, and it's 2018 now. But we did compile a great amount of information. We have believers all over our nation who are doing fabulous, phenomenal things as far as educating our children and really trying to effectively collect, using Brother Troy's collective, because we are a collective. It is an arduous task. We have a group of people, and I don't want to miss anybody's name, but they've been involved in the Saturday schools over the years. Sister Fatima, I'm sorry, Sister Latifa, Sister Melody, Sister Karen, Brother Troy was on the team, Sister Kadara with the MUI Homeschool Network, and some other sisters that I may forget, but please forgive me if I forget your name. But we all worked together, and we came up with. But Troy put together a Google document, and from that Google document, we built some ideas and some concepts on what we could offer to put into this Saturday school curriculum. So um, we kind of put it by the wayside, and then I recently picked it back up. I was really trying to get it done by Savior's Day. I wanted to have something done, but and I was inspired with the help of Allah to revise it. It's still not complete. We have about 6 weeks worth of lessons, and we want the goal is to have 24 because we want 6 months worth of lessons. So um, we have a small example of what that would look like, and we want to have something that we can use for a novice, someone who's never done this before, who's unsure, and even those who are experienced. So trying to put the lessons, starting with who is the original man, into a curriculum form so that everyone will be able to use it, because we're talking about the masses of our people. That was it's a lot, but it's nice. It's a wonderful work. So we have 6 weeks so far, and if Brother Troy wanted to show an example, that'd be great. But the first lesson that we're working on is who is the original man. And I'm trying to see maybe. So that's what we've been working on so far. And as soon as we get it done, we'll be able to submit it to Sister Deborah so that it can be approved. So, inshallah, we'll be able to use it across our nation. But I'm willing to help anyone who is interested in establishing Saturday school. When I was in college, um, I did go to college. I went to Dilley University in New Orleans, and I also have a master's degree in educational leadership. So, yeah, I use that master's degree because it's about building systems, creating sustainable systems, and trying to get people to collaborate together so that we can do this great work. Um, and if you're interested and you want to be a part of what we're doing, we're always open to new ideas and new people. You can email me. My email address is Kavon, Cavon, V is in victory, 87 at gmail.com. And if you can include your contact information, and I will talk to you. We can do a Google Hangout, whatever we need to do in order to get that done. I also have a tutoring program called The Gift After School, because I realized with the task that Sister Deborah had presented to me and that I accepted, it was going to take more time than I had. And being in the public school, you just pull so many different ways. So it got to the point where I just couldn't sustain both of them, just trying to do the work, build this nation, and trying to educate our own children. And my children were begging me to homeschool them, and my husband was encouraging me. So, now all praise is due to Allah. I'm in a situation where I can pick the work back up and continue moving forward. So I know all the ups and not all of them, but I know a lot of ups and downs, a lot of trials and tribulations that we go through when we're trying to get something established. And we always say we need to be consistent. And consistency is really just continuing the work, just regardless of what comes. Not necessarily frequency. You might not even be able to do it every Friday or every Monday or every Wednesday, but just building on that, constantly building so that you can create a better product. So we're constantly building and conditioning ourselves. We're constantly teaching and training our youth and others. The Saturday school model that I use, that we used when we had our Saturday school going really, really strong. We had 5 different age groups. We had the babies, where we dealt with young mothers, expecting mothers. We also dealt with babies, but the mothers would have to bring the babies with them. We didn't take care of them. It wasn't like a daycare, so we're really just teaching the mothers how to help and assist in teaching their children. And we had the early childhood ages, like 3 to 5, 3 to 7, 3 to 7, about 3 to 5, 3 to 7. We would work with them on basic Islamic principles, and then we had the younger children from 7 to 10, and they had their own teacher and their own class that they would go to. And then we had our teenagers. Our teenagers were middle school all the way up to high school. And then adults, we had an adult class. The adult class would meet like on Saturday evenings. And it was usually all day Saturday. We had events. We had literacy nights, science nights. We went on field trips. I'm sorry, let me speak louder. We went on field trips. Um, we did a lot of things in the community with other people. So we weren't just in the mosque. And I strongly believe building coalitions, making friends in the community, building alliances. Even now with my school, we go on a field trip every Wednesday and we go out and we meet with professionals who are doing things that we need to have knowledge of. So we're not just in the classroom. And these are the same things that we did with the Saturday school. We had an agriculture class because we have some elders who are Pride of 75 and they have gardens. One of our elders, he had goats and lamb, chicken. So he taught class from his backyard, and he even built the area for us to continue having our studies. We also had a relationship with the library because when you want to have events and you need a large facility, you want to be able to go to those people and they give it to you for free because we are needing help. So that's what we did. So we built those relationships with churches. We had community leaders who supported the school and would give us information on any kind of youth programs that were available during the summertime, especially, and throughout the year. We would enroll our children museum classes. We would get scholarships for our students. So we had a lot going on. We had fundraisers, of course. You always need to have fundraisers. You have to constantly have somebody that's over that, and it it was a lot of work. I mean, it was like almost more work than being in a day to day school. But we took it very seriously, and even now, many of the children are either teenagers or grown, and they remember the things that we did with them. They remember the time, and then there are people in the community that we work with that I've been calling on since I started school. I'm like letting them know, I have a school. I'm ready for us to continue what we started before, building those coalitions and linking on with people. So uh, the people will support you. The minister has already made friends for us, and they're out there. They're really out there. My coworkers, people that I've worked with, they have donated money, supplies. I mean, I don't really want for supplies because I have quite a bit. We have a black bookstore here. They've supported everything that we have done in the mosque, in the community, just offering their help, offering their facility, and they have a large area for us. So we've had several events there. So I encourage everyone because our children are running out of the classrooms in the public school. There's a lot of bullying going on. I just text one of my former parents, and she was telling me how she desires to homeschool her son because he's being bullied at school. I had a new student enrolled because of that. So the schools are not safe. Our children are walking the streets, and we have to do something to. We have to create this. It's already been created. We just got to keep on working on building this independent educational system because it's very, very necessary. Children are getting put in alternative schools, or being arrested and going to jail. And these are our people, these are our children. So we have to, those of us that have the passion to do this, we have to move forward. So that's really all I have, Sister Deborah. I'm definitely open to any questions that anyone has for me, and I'm available. I will make myself available to help in whatever endeavor I can. I'd like to thank you, and I really like to just say that I appreciate those who are continuously working and who've made the sacrifice before before I even was even aware that there was a sacrifice to be made. I really appreciate the work that and the foundation that has been laid, because when you go out there in that community, you start digging, you're gonna find the teachers of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. You're gonna find people who love the minister, who support him. We have a great relationship with the followers of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, the believers that the mosque did. We've had um, events with them. I just talked to one of the sisters who Friday for 75 last week, and she was telling me about a youth event that they're having, and she wants me to bring the children. So my children and the believing children and those that participated with us, they know these people. They are familiar with them. We have been building community, and that's important. When we go into the apartment complexes that we've been in, and that we've had courtship classes in, they stop us and they're like, "When are you coming back? When are you coming?" So they have a desire. The desire is there. Our children want to learn. We One last thing, and then I'm gonna stop before somebody stops me. But we have a Save Our Girls program in the apartments, and it's not that far from where I live. And it was for girls. So when the bus comes, we pass out flyers to them, and we've made toiletry bags. We've given them books, and it's to promote the program for the Saturday. So we go there on Friday, promote the program, and then on Saturday we have our meeting. Well, the last time we went, the boys were like, "What do you have for the boys? What do you have for the boys?" And so my my school goes as mentors the boys, because I want the girls to see what gentlemen look like, and then when they pass them out, they say, "Thank you, sister. Thank you, queen," that kind of stuff. And so when my boys went there, um, I told the other boys that demanded, they were like at the table demanding stuff. I said, "Well, if y'all just go over there to the side, if you're a boy, stand on the sidewalk." So it's about 10 boys that lined up. It was about 40 children on the bus, and it was like a huge gathering. And they stood there and they were drilled by my students. My students started calling drill, and they just stood there and they started drilling, and they were really involved. They were excited. And then we had two boys to come the next morning, and this was elementary students. So they made an effort on a Saturday without anyone telling them to come to the meeting. And then they drilled the day before. But so that was by their own account. This was nothing that anybody forced them to do. It was something that they did on their own. So I'm just letting us know that we need to be out here. We need to do what the minister has asked us to do. So what we did, we entitled the curriculum Ghetto Schools Curriculum. The minister talked about ghetto schools on the educational challenge, the lecture that he did. So we have the beginning, and this is just the beginning. I mean, I don't even know if it's the beginning. Maybe it's the middle, because I haven't started anything. We're just trying to continue to build the work. So that's what we have to offer. And with that, I like to greet you as I came before you in the green words of
Yes,
peace. Assalamu alaikum.
Alaikum salam. Thank you, Sister Kavan. It was a pleasure working with you on that project, the time that we did. Definitely enjoy your spirit and your energy. Um, One of the things I do want to jump in and ask those who have questions, if you're logged in from the collective9.org / Saturday School, we should see your questions at the bottom. We actually, for those who may be having a challenge with that, in just a few moments, we're going to provide another number that if you have questions for any of those who are participating, that we'll be able to actually give you a number that you can text your questions to as well. So please be patient. With that, I'm going to pass it back to Sister Deborah, who will present our next presenter.
Thank you, Sister Kavan.
Thank you.
Okay, well, of course, Sister Kavan has worked along with some other believers on the Saturday School program. And so with that being said, as I said earlier, that we have a special guest that will be joining us in just a few minutes. This special guest, really, she is a wealth of information. She is the founder, as she told me, of the Muhammad University of Islam under the leadership and guidance of the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan. This is Sister Shelby, Emeritus Director of MUI, and of course, Director of MUI schools, as well as the Minister of Education for the Nation of Islam under the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan. And we're asking her if she could really just come on and share with us. You would have to come off of mute and share with us, if you would, a little history about the beginnings of the Muhammad University of Islam, and how we started off, or were supposed to start off, with a Saturday school program, and the evolution of the Saturday school program as we know it, and as we have known it, as an enrichment program and a feeder to start a Muhammad University of Islam. So without any further delay, I would like to present to you all Sister Emeritus Shelby Muhammad.
Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam, ma'am.
I enjoyed the presentation. A lot of energy, commitment, and that's what it takes. Brother Troy has taken me from my studies because he would not allow me to say no, no, no. So here I am. I go back to tell you from the very beginning of how we started, how we re-established Muhammad University of Islam, because that is the way it should be stated. When Muhammad University of Islam, the foundation that began after the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan decided, committed to rebuild the nation, we came in the nation with a purpose, I would say. But once we came in, there was one teacher in the mosque at the final call at the time. I came in the nation in 1986, along with my sister. We were both teachers in the Chicago public school system. When we came in, the minister was on a tour of Africa. There was a brother by the name of Brother Wahid Muhammad. Brother Wahid came to Sister Van and I because one of the things that we learned early in the nation, because I had a brother that came in ahead of us, my brother Aziz Muhammad in Mississippi. And so we were told, he always, in the nation, you follow instructions. Those were the key things that we remember. You were asked to do something, you follow instructions. So Brother Wahid came to my sister and I and said, Sister Ava would like for you all to get a Saturday school started, and she would like to have it up and running when the minister returns from his tour. Well, we never heard of a Saturday school. We were public school teachers. So we got together, and some of the sisters from the final call agreed to help us. We weren't calling that a mosque at the time. The minister called it the final call administration building. This was the rebuilding process. So we started the Saturday school, and we made an appeal to the believers, what we were trying to do. And we got so much support. There were people who collected things for us, collected furniture. And so we started with the Saturday school. And then we were able to add, as we went along, we were able to do a martial arts class with the brothers. Sisters weren't doing martial arts at that time. So we were able to have a part of the Saturday with the brothers doing martial arts. And we just moved from that foundation. We stayed with the Saturday school. And then during the summer, the following year, when the public schools closed and we were not working, we did a summer school. So we did the summer school. That would be 87, 88, summer school. So we were building on that foundation. And then there was an education conference it started with Mother Tynetta Muhammad and a sister from San Diego at the time, Dr. Raquel Muhammad. She had been a teacher under the Honorable Elijah Muhammad at Muhammad University. They were able to the minister allowed them to do a workshop in Highland Park, Michigan. And from that workshop, they formed a National Board of Education. The minister came that Sunday and spoke to the group. So that Board of Education was set up. Dr. Raquel was the head of the board, but she lived in San Diego. So when, I know I might be going a little fast, but Brother Troy wants me to give you all the history.
Oh, it's great.
So
Continue.
when I remember going to 2 meetings in San Diego when Dr. Raquel called a meeting, and we did the paperwork. We had an old curriculum from some of the former directors. She had a curriculum, so she compiled this curriculum and to give us some idea of what they did then at Muhammad University. So we had these tools, but by the time we finished raising money from around the nation to buy back the property at Mars Mariam, it wasn't called that then. So when we raised enough money, then that is when the minister, I made a move to open the university, and I was asked to head up that re-establish it in Muhammad University. He dismantled the Board of Education because he wanted members of the board to be at headquarters. And we haven't had a national Board of Education since that. But when I was talking to Brother Troy about this, he didn't know that we ever had a Board of Education, but we did. So I came through that Board of Education as a director, to be the director. But after that, as I started doing my paperwork, my dining room table served as my office. That's where Muhammad University was reborn, with my dining room table. So we worked from that process. We had a committee. The committee was mainly my sister and I. And then we found a sister who taught at the university, and she was on the west side of Chicago, but she had a daycare center. So we had gotten all of these books and policies and how you license a daycare center. So when she came and met with Sister Van and I, she said, "Put the books away. I'll walk you through it." And that is how we started, with a daycare center. Once all of the rehabilitation was done at the mosque and the school, the minister made the announcement, Mother's Day, May in 1989. The university opened officially that Monday. So we weren't finished with, because all of the inspectors, the city has so many inspectors. This is Chicago. So you had heating and plumbing, you had health, and you had ventilation, all these things, electricity. All of the inspectors had not, and the Board of Health. So all of the inspectors had not come out when we approached that Sunday, that Mother's Day. But the minister said he wanted the school open, so I opened. So we opened the school. We were in operation and this was just a daycare. We were in operation for about 3 weeks when I got served with a citation
Wow.
And I was charged with operating a daycare center without a license. So,
Wow.
so I had to go to court. I had to get on the witness stand. Sister Ava was my attorney. So I had to answer questions from Sister Ava. I guess after the judge, it was only Sister Ava and the judge, right?
Wow.
So I had to sit in that chair, raise my right hand. So they fined us. We did have to pay a fine, but it wasn't a huge fine. And we just took the children over to the mosque in the basement until the other inspectors came. And so once we finished with the inspections, we got the license. But that was the first hurdle that we had to go through. So this was, as I said, it started the Monday after the ministers. If you go back and listen to that tape, Mother's Day, 1989.
Yes,
The
ma'am.
minister made the announcement on that tape that Muhammad University would open that Monday. Okay. So it's been an interesting struggle, but it's been a lot of work as it would be if no matter what you were rebuilding or what you're building, what you're trying to set out to build. But I will share this one thing with you. When I came from the board, when we started working with the Saturday school and we waited, and we thought the university was going to open as soon as we got the property, but it didn't. It didn't open until the following year, 2 years almost. So we worked. I think my sister went back to the county. I worked at the final call. I did secretary work at the final call while we were waiting for the mosque and school to be completed. And so we took that journey, and we just never looked back. So starting with the daycare center, we were moving forward until the end of this summer. At the end of the summer, we did a summer school. So the summer school allowed us, we went to 8th grade for summer school. It allowed us to get the teaching staff, get the material that we needed, that we could bag up and whatever. Yeah. But the minister gave instructions, and now let me back up for a minute. While this is going on, I had to meet with the minister weekly in the beginning. Yes, I had to go to him to give him a report. It was very easy to get to contact the minister in those days, because the nation had not grown as it has. So he says, "Sister, I want a report every week. I want you to come give me an update every week." And I used to do that. So we did this. We started the summer school, and the summer school allowed us, number one, to get a look at the staff. So the teachers that wanted to work that we had hired, we were able to do that. With the daycare center, since it was licensed, so that meant that the teachers in the daycare had to have so many hours in early childhood. So we hired one sister who was not registered, and got permission to do that because we needed that person on the staff with those credentials. And I think she stayed with us for about 3 or 4 years. So we moved from summer school. And by summer school, we saw where we were. So when September came, we officially opened the school all the way up through high school.
And what year was that?
I'm sorry?
It was September of which year?
September of 1989.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
Yes. So September 1989, the school opened, and we always had more young brothers than sisters. And we were on the double shift. Brothers came in the morning from 8 to 12, and the sisters came from 1. We started 1 to 3, then we moved it to 1 to 4. The minister said I have to share this with you. The minister had also said that because when Muhammad University was open under the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, he said, we had buses. So sisters, we want the students that parents who can't get their children to school, we want to pick them up. Well, we didn't have a bus. We didn't have a bus. We didn't have money to buy a bus. So what we did, we rented 2 vans from a regular rental agency. We rented 2 vans to pick up children. Picked up sisters, brothers in the morning, took them, dropped them off at noon, picked up sisters for the afternoon. Within, I would say, 4 or 5 months, we were able to get a van. So we worked from that point on. We didn't serve lunch only because the students were there half day. So the only students who ate, of course, were the children in the preschool. This process went on until I was director until 2004. We changed in 2002, we changed the structure where the boys, the brothers and the sisters were there all day. Did that pose a problem? Yes, it did. It posed a problem in that the older brothers, of course, would go across the street, hang out at some businesses, get in trouble, but they wanted to hang around until the sisters were out of school. The younger children were either picked up by their parents, and then we had bus service. We had a van. We never bought the school bus. We always had the 2 vans. So we dropped off, younger children were dropped off, the older children caught the bus. So that posed an issue too, because the older brothers didn't want to go home. They wanted to stay until the sisters were out of school. So they would hide out in different places on the property or across the street. And that posed a little issue, but Muhammad University has been full-time with boys and girls since 2002. Okay. Because it did begin to be a problem, because then you had so many parents who worked. Mm-hmm. Having children dropped off, then they had to have some place for them to be dropped off too if no one was home to receive them. Mm-hmm. So you have to make adjustments. The point I'm trying to say is how we function then, you can't really function like that now. Mm-hmm. Things may be different. Changes have happened with people's backgrounds, with their work habits and so forth. So you have to make adjustments according to where you are. That's why before you jump into anything, you got to assess. Yes, do an assessment. What do you have? How much space do you have? How many children in the mosque? I would say for anyone who's thinking about a Saturday school and not already doing it, you got to do an inventory. How many children are in the mosque? What are their ages? How many brothers? How many sisters? Then who in the mosque has a college degree? I mean, it doesn't mean that you can't teach if you don't have, but somebody you need to be under somebody's tutelage. Yes. I would recommend, right? So these are things you got to know. You just got to know, what do we have? And then the other thing is, once you start a school, you also got to know, this requires that you got to have somebody who is professional enough to extract information and don't share information. Only with those in authority who need the information. So if you have a number of students in the mosque, then you say, well, we got 50 students, or we got 30 students. We can start a school. Do you have students whose parents can afford tuition? There is a Sister Salama in Oakland, California. Sister Salama was able, she's probably still doing this now. Yeah. In California, there were all kinds of organizations where you could get scholarships for children. Mm-hmm. So whenever Sister Salama had children whose parents, weren't able to pay the tuition, she'd find a donation for them. That's right. Some organization, she recommended it was called the Children's Scholarship Fund.
Mhm.
When she gave me that information, we had children in the university who were able to get, the parents were able to get scholarship money for their tuition. But when the word got out, who these children were, this was Muhammad University, this was Louis Farrakhan. So they canceled this program. They took it out of Illinois. Took it out.
Mm.
But that program was very beneficial. And Sister Salama in Oakland was still going with the program, but they took it out of Illinois. So we weren't able to use that program again. But so there may be, there may be funds out there somewhere but sometimes you just have to look, because sometimes that, and I will share this with you all. I might be rambling, but I gotta.
No, ma'am, please continue.
When we opened the university, there was a brother who worked for some company, computer company. He gave us a used computer and a printer.
Mm.
Well, about 3 weeks later, some little Jewish white lady called me and said, I'm telling you, you qualified to get a computer and a printer. She said, go such and such a place, go down to this place, that. She said, there's money there for private schools, non-public schools. Because when we opened the university, Sister Ava did the paperwork. So we opened the university from early childhood through higher education.
Yes, ma'am.
So those documents, that registration is in the state of Illinois State Board of Education. So it doesn't mean because Muhammad University is an independent school, it's against the law in Illinois to operate a daycare center without a license. And it's probably that way everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
If it is, it's because there are so many things that have happened with daycare, with children, so forth.
Right.
So you're in the system, whether you want to be in the system or not, somehow, some aspects of it is in the system. Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Let me go back. So I want to get back to, I don't want to lose my chain of thought. So after we progressed through the licensed daycare center, the high school is up. Well, I had been told by former teachers, directors at Muhammad University, and the minister that high school was 3 years. High school, the students in high school 3 years. Now, if school started in September,
Right.
when we first started opening university, school was out the second week of August. So if you count what the state demands, in Illinois, it used to be 886 days.
Mm-hmm.
So if you say the average school term goes from September to June, well, if you go from June through August, then you're going through a summer school.
Yes, ma'am.
Well, that wasn't on anybody's paper. That is something I said, well, wait a minute. We can justify that 3 years, coming out in 3 years, because the students would have gone 3 years of high school and 3 summer schools,
Mm-hmm.
the equivalent in terms of days. So that's how Muhammad University, being on a 3-year cycle, it was lawful. So we went outside of the norm with that. So getting back to the daycare, early childhood center. So there were inspectors that came in periodically, especially from the Board of Health. And sometimes we may have had to get something fixed, but they didn't bother us. We did what we needed to do. Someone would come from the state board. And in Illinois, your license lasts for 2 years. Cities once a year. And now the city is 2 years. The state board now is 2 years. You renew it. So it wasn't that really was never an issue with us after that. So we had the early childhood program all the way through high school. And there were teachers now, Brother Shaheed Muhammad was just getting out of college when we opened the university in '89. He was so persistent, I actually hired him over the telephone. I'd never seen him. But you had people who just who came. We didn't have a lot of teachers who came out of town. Most of them came from Chicago, but some did relocate. So this after we opened the university, because universities are year-round school, then we didn't need the Saturday school. So the Saturday school was, we would sometimes change our program somewhat during the summer.
Mm-hmm.
And we would take the children camping and do things like, you know, outdoor things. And to carry that idea, we tried to involve the community. One time we had a walkathon,
Okay.
and we walked down Stony Island. We had our police escorts, but it was a fundraiser. It was a fundraiser, so that the preschool was involved. So most of the parents walked for the preschoolers, and they only walked maybe just a little block around
Yes.
the mosque. That was there. But they got sponsors. The children were able to get sponsors, and it was a fun thing, but it was a nice fundraiser. But everybody participated, you know, as I said, the preschool as well. But they only just walked the preschoolers around the mosque. The preschool staff, so we transitioned students from preschool into kindergarten. Some students would transition into kindergarten by age 4, if they were ready. If they weren't ready, then fine, because some children are just not. Some 5-year-olds sometimes are not ready, but definitely it's not something that's a given, you know. So you really have to know. That's why having teachers who are thorough and know what they are doing, because otherwise it can be a hindrance as well as being positive. And those are things that you have to, that's why a director has to be on the case, because you got to know if someone is effective or not.
Yes.
And the
ma'am.
only way you're going to know that is through observation and the performance of the students in that class. That's the biggest way to know, best way to know. You gotta be observant. One day the minister walked through the school and I didn't know he was in the building. And you know, if the minister has something to tell you, he's gonna tell you, right? So he walked through the building when I didn't know he was in the building. He said, Sister Shelby, you tell those brothers that they are not here to preach. They are here to teach the children. So he had walked through school, and one brother was reading his Quran. How he's supposed to be teaching. So, but he didn't say anything to them. He came to me. Sister, you tell these brothers. It's like he could well have said, brother, put the Quran away. Are you monitoring your class? You know, he didn't do that. Sister Shelby. So there were a few of those instances. So it was always, yes, sir, you know, and you follow through. So as I said, in those days, the nation hadn't grown as it has. And so I was fortunate enough to have hands-on. Sure, that happened. But but you know, you have your ups and downs, and that's going to happen. And actually it's harder. It's probably more challenging for the smaller mosque, you know, because number one, you got to deal with numbers, you got to deal with resources. But you start. Now I will give you an example of a Sister Deborah. You may know Sister Estelle Muhammad, who was the director in Detroit. She was in Detroit. I think she was the second director in Detroit. When her husband retired from General Motors, they moved back. Her husband had some property in Arkansas, just right out of Memphis.
Yes, ma'am.
So they moved back to Arkansas, and she went to the mosque in Memphis under Brother Anthony Muhammad. In preparation, I would say for about 2 or 3 years before they opened a Muhammad University in Memphis, Sister Estelle established a Saturday school.
Yes, ma'am.
What Sister Estelle did, I went to visit them one day. Sister Estelle the children came, the sisters had their classes on Saturday because they came with their parents to MGT. The brothers had that class on Sunday.
Mhm.
The children had black, blue, and white uniforms, just like they were in a regular Muhammad University.
Yes, ma'am.
She did this for about 3 or 4 years before they were able to transition into a full school year. But I just thought that was just amazing. You know, when you looked at the little children on a Sunday, it was like they were in school. They were in their own area. Sisters, Saturday at MGT, the brothers had their school on Sunday, and they were structured just like a regular school.
Yes, ma'am.
And I thought that was one of the best examples that I have witnessed in terms of laying that foundation. And when they were able to get into a different facility where they had the space,
Yes.
no, they got a trailer and put it on the property next to the mosque. That's where they said, that's where they had the school. They had a daycare center as well as the regular school. I just thought I would share that example with you. Sister Estelle, I think, has relocated back to Detroit, and her health is not good.
Yes.
But
ma'am.
but she was there for quite a while in Memphis once they did open the school. Sister Deborah, maybe
Yes.
I've talked too much.
You have not
I
talked.
mean, but if I left out something, then feel free to ask me a question. Okay.
Well, at this time, I want to know if Brother Troy has any questions that may have come in from offline. And if Sister Kavan or Sister Latifa, which we haven't introduced yet, if they have any questions that they would like to pose, we would like to open the floor up to ask you some questions. And we will, in about 30 minutes, we'll have Sister Latifa come on after we see if we have any questions. And then in about 30 minutes, we'll open the floor up for questions again to all of the presenters. So Brother Troy, did we get any questions in offline? You're on mute, sir.
No, ma'am. I'm actually looking. I'm going to actually see if I can get that number from you. It may be a problem, but I don't see any questions coming in. But once again, thank you so much, Sister Shelby. Of course, this is not going to be our last time getting the honor and privilege of hearing this history. One of the things that we're working on is that, you know, sometimes we as citizens of the nation, we say that we're being written out of history, is that we really have to do a better job at taking responsibility and making sure that we include it in history. So don't see any questions. I'm going to look in a few other locations, but I don't see any questions at this point.
Thank you. Do we have any more questions, Sister Kavan? Do you have any questions that you would like to pose to Sister Emeritus Shelby Muhammad?
Yes, ma'am.
Oh, you may ask at this time.
Thank you, Sister Shelby, for your wonderful presentation. And I took your idea because you were on our conference call when the Saturday School Initiative was meeting heavily and frequently, and you said you talked about the Saturdays, the summer programs that you started during the summer. So I took that to heart, and we're having a summer program here in our city. So I thank you for that, because that was like, I wouldn't have thought about that on my own. So I appreciate that. I did want to ask you personally, what did you do to keep yourself inspired and motivated to continue the work of establishing the school system that we have as MUI?
I could barely hear you, but I think I got the gist of your question. Well, if you came with a commitment to help the nation, that was your motivation. And you continued because the minister, you knew how hard I think it's maybe a little bit different for those of us, as Brother Troy knows. If you're right in the headquarters, then naturally you're going to interact, or the minister's going to come through, or you may when the word gets around, the minister's on the property, you know, you had a different feel for, am I doing what I should be doing? Have I dotted my I's and crossed my T? Or the minister may walk through here any day. So you had that always a part of your daily work. You wanted to make sure that you're not doing anything where you're going outside of your instructions. I wasn't always correct in everything that I did, but I tried to do the best that I could in terms of trying to follow the instructions was there. And we always knew that, he didn't mention that in my words, we always knew that the school could not operate solely on tuition. No private school can do that. You can't charge enough tuition to operate a private school alone. So we had to do different things to help raise money. Whether we were selling dinners on a Sunday was something that came later. But we took 5 teachers, including myself, and we rotated each Sunday doing a dinner. So I had a Sunday, my sister had a Sunday, and we rotated. And the salon was not open then. So we had things that we did besides going to work every day at the school that we had to do to keep the school up and going, because we knew tuition couldn't do everything. So those things, that you do because you want to keep the things going, or you don't want to stay at the same standstill. You want to move it up a little bit. So now keep in mind also, if you can remember that I would say 2 years after after we opened the school, about a year after, the minister was on the Stop the Killing tour, right?
Yes,
So
ma'am.
if the minister was speaking in another state, bean pies went. So the brothers would get in the school van, drive wherever the minister was speaking. So the bean pie is really what kept us afloat.
Yes, ma'am.
It was never just the tuition. Never. So sometime all of us, a few times I got in the van as well. And so I remember going to St. Louis, Atlanta, Kansas City. We went on, it was weekend. We'd be in the van and we would go, and the brothers would set up and they would sell the bean pies. And then we started doing the t-shirts and the sweatsuits, and those became staples.
Mhm.
So we just going to work every day, going to the university, doing your job every day, that wasn't all we did. We worked at other tasks as well. Okay.
Yeah. Thank you so very much. I mean, it's just such a wealth of information that you have, and we look forward to, on the other side of Sister Latifa speaking, I have a couple of questions that I would like to ask as well about the history of the Nation of Islam going back to its founding under Master Fard Muhammad. So we want to thank you so very much for giving us that wonderful presentation. We look forward to, Sister Shelby, I know you're busy in school, but we really look forward to having you back and really just picking your brain, because this is really what we need to be focused on right now. Our education, not just for our children K through 12, but even for the adults. And so we really, really, really need to get what you have in your mind out to the public so that we can begin to start having this conversation in our various mosques and study groups all over the nation, because it's so important and vitally necessary at this time.
Sure.
So thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
But next, we would like to bring Sister Latifa Muhammad from Fredericksburg, Virginia, to give us a presentation on the role that she had to play with the reestablishing of the Muhammad Universities of Islam, and as well as the Saturday School program. Sister Latifa now is currently an online instructor for MUI in Washington, D.C., and she also is the founder of a school that is in existence now. She could tell you more about it. And she serves as an advisor to that school. So we would like to, at this time, bring on Sister Latifa Muhammad, and she'll tell us a little more about who she is and about her involvement with the Saturday School program and its importance for us having a education that's founded and rooted in the divine teachings of the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad. Sister Latifa, are you with us? And if you are, you're still on mute, so you could come off of mute now.
See, I
There.
think it's now.
Yes, ma'am.
Assalamu alaikum.
Walaikum salam, ma'am.
In the name of Allah, the Beneficent, the Merciful, I bear witness there's no God but Allah, and Muhammad is his messenger. And I am so happy to be here. Of course, I'm not happy following Sister Shelby Muhammad, but I am so happy to be here. And I thank Allah for Sister Shelby. I just need to say this. I probably worried her more than any other teacher in Muhammad universities in our nation, always calling her. So she's been truly for me a model, a mentor, and just a wonderful, wonderful resource. And I thank Allah for our relationship expanding these 30-some years as my sister and confidant for education. So this is for me just a great honor. And hopefully I can do this justice to thank her for all that she has given to me. Currently, I do have the blessing to work with Muhammad University of Islam number 4 and 24, which is in Washington, D.C., our regional headquarters for the Mid-Atlantic region, and Richmond, Virginia, which is Muhammad Mosque number 24, under the leadership of Minister Tracy Muhammad. I do language arts with both of those schools, and we do live sessions 3 days a week, Monday through Wednesday. And it is a beautiful thing that these students have the opportunity to see each other, Washington and Richmond together on the screen, able to interact. I'm actually 50 miles apart from Washington and Richmond, so I physically sit in the middle of these two cities. And in the very near future, we're actually working on the opportunity to bring them together into Fredericksburg, Virginia, so that they get to be with each other, meet and greet, and have the opportunity to study together. I was not a part of the establishment of Muhammad University of Islam, but I did have the opportunity to be a beginning teacher in Muhammad Mosque number 4 in Washington, D.C., when they opened their school. I will never forget walking at some event in Chicago, and Sister Nisa Islam Muhammad at the time was the student MGT captain. And she asked me, she said, "Are you still interested in education?" And at the time I was teaching in the public school system. I was an art teacher. And I had heard the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan make the statement that we needed to be able to master the English language. So I had begun at that time working with different children in tutoring in English and language arts. And so I told her yes, and she invited me to come to a planning meeting that they had in Washington, D.C. in, I think it was 1992. And at the time, I was currently establishing the alternative education program here in the city of Fredericksburg and operated that for a 2-year period. When I got to Washington, D.C., I remember meeting with Minister Sean Muhammad, who was the minister of the mosque at that time. And he wrote a figure on a piece of paper and passed it across the table like you see in movies sometimes, that had the figure of what my salary would be if I came to teach at Muhammad University of Islam. And I remember this feeling that I got, and I was like, oh my goodness. I said, I need 24 more hours to redo my budget, but I can bear witness. While it was a reduction in salary, it was an increase in faith. It was an increase in the love of our nation. It became an increase in knowing that we had to establish education for ourselves. And it was one of the best moves that I have ever made in my life. So I am so thankful for Muhammad University of Islam and being able to have that opportunity to serve there. I served as an instructor for Muhammad University of Islam number 4, went on to become the director for several years, and then the regional director before being relocated to Columbia, South Carolina. And it was in Columbia, South Carolina, where my interest for the Saturday school really became strong. And I kept talking with Sister Shelby, and she gave me how Saturday schools used to be. And it was again from that same lecture when the minister talked about establishing Saturday schools, similar to like a feasibility study to see if, in fact, you were ready to open Muhammad universities of Islam in your respective cities. At the time, Columbia, South Carolina was still a study group. And so areas that wanted to have schools, you wouldn't be an official Muhammad University of Islam if you were not an official mosque. So we did our 3 years of Saturday school, and eventually we established Najm Academy, an MUI learning center. And that became our school program. We had a day school from preschool to grade 8. So I'm going to try to share a little bit of how we were able to launch our Saturday school. And then we were able to branch that Saturday school out to our region, that we had a system of Saturday schools for a period of 2 to 3 years, which was just fantastic in being able to do it. We also used the Saturday schools as a fundraiser, because one of the things that the minister did say, we weren't used to paying for our education. And so we should have some kind of little nominal fee. And so we charged $4 a week for the children to participate in the Saturday school program. Sister Shelby had shared with us that Saturday school was 2 hours. And so we used that 2-hour frame and we crammed in as much as we could. We didn't make it an academic center on that Saturday, but it was a reinforcement for what they were getting in school. It was enrichment. It was cultural arts. We had the Islamic studies and we had drilling. And that was the format that we used. And I was fortunate enough to have a minister at that time. Our regional minister is our now general counsel, Brother Minister Abdul Arif Muhammad, who was the regional minister, who gave me some flexibility. And so it's very important that you are able to establish relationships with your ministers of the mosque and they know the value of education. That is so important, because we get a lot of resistance sometimes when we want to try the educational component with everything else that goes on in the mosque. For some reason, we don't see that this is an integral part and not a piece that should be put on the wayside. So it took some pushing, but finally Minister Arif came on board. So I had him in Washington and I had Sister Shelby Muhammad as my resource in Chicago. So that gave me a lot of confidence in being able to move forward. What our Saturday day looked at, like, we came in from 1 o'clock to 3 o'clock. And the students came, they had devotion. We did drilling and discipline reviews. And then we had the Islamic studies, and that was very important. And during the Islamic studies, we were able to get the minister to give input into the Islamic studies, and we tried to get him in at least twice a month. Then we had reinforcements, reteaching, and tutorials. That way, we tried to keep our hand on the pulse of how our children were doing in the public school system, so that if we could run interference for them, if they were struggling in some of their subjects, we could find out if people were able to tutor them and to work with them. If it was about the discipline, we were able to talk about what were some of the problems. In some cases, we even had parents who wanted us to go in with them for conferences. So building that bridge between the schools that they had to go to, but having the Saturday school, because it's one thing to tell your children, you are an original man, the maker, the owner, the cream of the planet Earth, and God of the universe. And then they go into a school system where the persons that most of our children get to see are the very people who we teach them are our enemy. And so you have to understand there's a conflict with that in the minds of our children. So we have to be willing to support our children if we're sending them out to public schools and other education establishments. We have to be willing to give them the support that they need to stay strong to the teachings that they get and be able to carry out their daily requirements in that public school. We also had weekly thematic units. that the students worked on. And we were able to do that, like we said, in a 2-hour period. One of the things that I heard Sister Shelby talk about that was very important for us was staffing. And that tends to be a huge problem when you talk about Saturday school. If you're fortunate enough to have teachers in the mosque, a lot of times it's automatically looked at that they are going to be the ones who have to do it. So we took a different approach to that. We looked at all of the believers who were in the mosque, and we asked them through a survey, what were some of their gifts and skills and talents, and what would they be willing to bring to the children on Saturday. And so we were able to compile a roster of believers who were willing to give a 2-hour block to come in and work with the children on Saturdays. And it worked out for us in Columbia that a brother and a sister almost came to the mosque on a Saturday for Saturday school once or twice for the entire year. And so that lifted a lot of the responsibility off of who the teachers are, or the MGT captain, or the FOI captain trying to serve as the dean or be the director and instructor. This helped us a whole lot in being able to staff our Saturday school. And the other thing is helping the believers to know that the school, the desire for a school, that belongs to all of us, not just those who are parents, not just those who are teachers, but the foundation of the whole teaching is just that word. It is teaching. Master Fard Muhammad came and taught. And so all of us should be involved in that education process. I heard Sister Kavan talk about resources. The community, that's where the resources are. And yes, the minister had made many friends for us in Columbia, South Carolina. And I was fortunate that my husband, Brother Earl Muhammad, was a man who loved the community through the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan. So we had people who would give of their time and their talents. And of course, they should be vetted before coming in. I heard the minister even make the statement once before Sister Susan Taylor came in from Essence Magazine when someone talked about her coming to speak to the MGT class. And he said, you just don't put anybody just because they are, by other standards, who they are. We have to make sure that they're clear to be in front of our children. And so it was, and that time he was talking about the MGT. So that's the same thing. Before we bring people in from the community, we had to really find out, were they truly supporters of the nation? What was their influence in the community? How did other people see them working in the community? And is that the spirit that they have all of the time? And is it going to be beneficial for bridging the relationship between the mosque and the community? We were able to get a free building using the Parks and Rec Center in the city of Columbia to host the Saturday school, because we did have a lot of children and our mosque was very small. So we were able to get the Parks and Rec Center, which was adjacent to a fabulous park and playground. So we had a lot of room and space to be able to do great programs. Two of the cities, Columbia being one, and Greensboro, North Carolina. Greensboro was actually able to have their Saturday school on the grounds of A&T College. We were actually able to get some of our classes over at Benedict. So again, this gave the children a chance to see the college aspect, Black institutions, higher learning, and they got to see us, our children coming in, because they did have to wear a uniform. The young girls had on their headpieces. We didn't have a lot of the TAMs at that time. So they saw them in their headpieces. They saw the young brothers dressed on a Saturday. The fourth Saturday of every month was a dress down, because we did physical activity, but they were still in a uniform of sort that was going to be able to be flexible enough to have their outdoor sports and things like that. And so We would be able to have field trips. Our fourth Saturday was also geared to our field trips in the community. So whatever theme we were working on through the month, then we tried to follow that up with a field trip or activity in the community at the end of the month for the children. We established progress reports so that the students would have something to take home because, again, remember, we were doing the Saturday school, moving towards establishing a Muhammad University of Islam. So we wanted to put things in place that they were actually going to see when a university would be able to open. And that our Saturday school report, it included our monthly attendance, the income that we brought in, expenses, communications with different outreach that we had. We had progress narratives, whatever concerns, recommendations, all of that we collected in our Saturday school report. And every month, the teachers had to send in the lesson plans and activities. And we had 5 cities. We had Maryland, Baltimore, we had DC, we had Richmond, we had Columbia, and we had Greensboro, Winston-Salem. So we had 5 cities who were doing this. So they would send in a monthly report of everything that was going on. And we actually built up a small file or library of the lessons that were being done in the different cities. So we were able to get different ideas that we could employ in different cities throughout our region. Because one of the things that we, kept saying, and I still pray to Allah that He blesses me to be able to help the Mid-Atlantic do, I believe we should be able to give the minister and the nation a region of education in the structure that he desires so that we can really build our education system through the Nation of Islam. We required that the lessons, of course, be in the foundation of the supreme wisdom. As I said, all of the field trips had to have a thematic connection to what was being taught. Field trips, those were financed by the parents. So whatever field trip we had, so we always made sure that at no later than the second Saturday, the parents knew where the children were going and what funds would be needed for that fourth. And parents had to attend. If the children were going on the field trip, the parents had to attend because we were not a babysitting service. And we established that early on. So parents got involved and they rotated coming in and participating and serving if it was just to help set up snacks or anything like that. But it had to be understood, again, that the school was our school. It wasn't the school that just belonged to a few people who wanted to set up. So we designed a handbook for the teachers and the staff. We designed a parent handbook. And we had a small handbook for the students, just like it would be an everyday school system. And so we did that for several years. And we set up the monies that came in. We were able to appropriate charity to go to number 2. We had charity for the local charity that we gave. We put charity in the MUI fund. We kept half of everything that came in to help operate the Saturday school. And then we sent a 10th of the half, we sent that to Washington for regional MUI to help us with expenses and things and mailing. And so that worked very well for a while. But of course, like everything else, we get tired. As Shelby said, that commitment is so necessary. But because we had so much, and at the time we were doing this was also the time that the nation was hot in the planning of the Million Man March. So the school was not at the priority of everybody else. So we were screaming for the school, but of course we were also moving towards the Million Man March. And then by 97, we were able to open Najm Academy, trying to use the format of Muhammad University of Islam because we couldn't establish it as an official Muhammad University of Islam. But we have been blessed in the last 3 years. The students that we had in our Saturday school and the students that we had for those 5 years in Najim Academy, they are now graduates and they are out doing the things. It was beautiful to see how many of them stated at Najim Academy what they wanted to do with their lives and how they wanted to contribute to our society. And now they have sent me invitations to graduations. I'm seeing them at different events, and they have actually walked into what they wanted to do. And they are still Muslim followers of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad under the leadership of the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan. So it does make a difference when we are able to come together and serve our children through education. And when we have the support of our laborers, when we have the support of our region, and as I said, I can never thank Allah enough for having the support of Sister Shell and her sister, Sister Van. The two of them, Sister Van and her reading knowledge, was a great asset to me because, again, my background and degree is in art education, but I decided based on the teachings that I wanted to do language arts. And so they were just a phenomenal resource for me. I heard Sister Shelby talk about the printer and computer. She shared that with us when I was the director in Washington, D.C. And Washington, D.C. was able to get into that program because it was national. And the printer is still in the mosque. They still have not gotten rid of it. It doesn't work anymore. But we were able to get that printer at Muhammad Mosque number 4 in Washington, D.C. And it served Muhammad University and the mosque very well for many, many years. So again, just by having someone in place who keeps her hands on us, willing to share the benefits that they were able to get in Chicago so that we could do that. My daughter happened to be a part of a board that went to Atlanta to learn about the Education Foundation for Walmart, which was another children's fund. And it was a tuition support program, 75%. We are still using that program in Washington, D.C. Quite a few of the students at Muhammad University of Islam in Washington get a 75% supplement for their tuition to attend Muhammad University of Islam. So there are resources out there. We just have to be willing to take the time to look for them, meet the compliances, which are standard anytime we're talking about having a school. That was one thing that I really appreciated. Sister Shelby said, get the record straight. Don't take that lightly, having your record straight for all of your staff. Make sure the credentials are in place, make sure all student records and forms are in place, and all of your building codes and things are in place. All of that plays a part in being able to qualify for different resources that are out there when we're making application. And it also shows that we are an organized system and serious about our system of education. So I thank you. I hope that has been helpful, and I hope I'm right on time to finish. May Allah bless you. Assalamu alaikum.
Walaikum salam. Thank you so much. We definitely, we're taught that history repeats itself because we don't learn the lessons of the past. And it's unfortunately in many instances that we continue to have to start, or we don't have to continue, but in many instances, we start over when we already have a wonderful foundation intact that's already been laid for us that we could just begin to build on. So I thank you, Sister Latifah. And of course, I'm always privileged whenever I have the opportunity to talk to Sister Shelby. Pretty soon, Sister Dr. Shelby.
To Allah.
Appreciate you both for all that you provided, and we look forward to getting more and more and more of that so that we can continue to build on those things that you have laid out. I'm going to see if Sister Deborah mentioned that she has some questions, and just want to let you all know that the website actually has crashed. So we still have individuals that are on via YouTube. So I'm going to post those on on social media for those to join us. So I've been trying to work in the background and getting that fixed, but we're not going to let it stop us by Allah's permission. So we'll have this recording, inshallah, and we'll be able to share it afterwards. So I'm going to pass it back over to Sister Deborah.
Thank you, Brother Troy. Well, the questions that had come in were in reference to homeschooling. So you had a couple of questions that people had about the homeschooling program. So being that they weren't on topic necessarily about Saturday school, I would like to go into asking a couple of questions that I have. And I want to first thank everyone. Thank Sister Latifa. That was an excellent, excellent presentation. I think you really gave a lot of information about the how-tos of starting a Saturday school. I mean, very detail oriented and what you all did and what made it successful. And I thank you. As always, Sister Latifa is an absolute professional in everything that she does. Thank you, Sister Latifa. At this time, what I would like to do is we are going into the last part of our webinar. We want to ask for questions, and the number that you can text your questions to in regards to starting a Saturday school. If you have a question for Sister Kavan Muhammad, Sister Emeritus Shelby Muhammad, or Sister Latifa Muhammad, you can text those questions to Brother Troy. The number is, you're on mute. And as Brother Troy looks for the number where you could text it to, what we would like to do is go into a couple of questions. I wanted to ask a question to Sister Shelby. Recently, he has the number. So go ahead, Brother Troy. You're still on mute.
So that number is 773-570-0663. So you can text your questions once again to 773-570-0663. And those who are on YouTube, it's being streamed live on YouTube. So those who are there, I'll be looking in the chat area for questions as well.
And of course, if you're in the YouTube, you're looking through YouTube, we would like for you to subscribe. So hit the subscribe button and the like button, because we want to be able to, in the future, give you notifications of any content that we have coming out. So yes, please hit the subscribe button. And with that being said, I would like to, recently, I was speaking to Sister Beverly Muhammad in Atlanta, Georgia. She is a wonderful student of the, somebody's cell phone is going, okay. So she's was a student, or is a student of Mother Tainetta Muhammad's, and she told me something that I didn't know about. And she said that when Master Fard Muhammad came to North America, he brought with him a professor of mathematics. And she said that the first thing that he set up was the University of Islam. And so this question is for Sister Shelby. If you know anything about that history, about Master Fard Muhammad setting up the University of Islam and this mathematics professor, could you speak into that, please?
I'm not privy to that much information. I do know, based on what I learned from the minister as I became in the nation, that Master Fard Muhammad started with a reading class. The reading class was established in the mosque in Detroit for the believers. It wasn't for the children, because many of the believers could not read and write properly. Now that is as far as that part of the history that I got, that the minister told us about, that's where it started. It didn't start with children. It started with the believers.
Yes, ma'am. Could you speak a little bit more into, if you know about the beginnings of the Muhammad University of Islam, as the early followers established it?
Most of the information that came from me, and I'll tell you where, from speaking with the minister, but also the Honorable Elijah Muhammad's son, Herbert Muhammad. I have to find it though, but I do have a writing of his, because before he made his transition, he was writing a book. And Brother Rufai, who was the Arabic teacher at the time at the university, Brother Rufai was proofreading the book for him. And he gave me a copy to help him to proofread. Well, Brother Herbert passed away, I would say, but maybe the next year, less than a year from that time. So I don't know whatever happened to the book, but I do know that in that book, and proofreading that segment from Brother Rufai, he talked about the early beginnings of Muhammad University of Islam, when the Honorable Elijah Muhammad had the believers, to take their children out of the public school. And when it was learned by the white man that these children were being schooled, that they were arrested. They arrested the teachers, and the Honorable Elijah Muhammad did an exchange where he asked that they release the teachers and take him. Those were those early days. But yes, they suffered. We struggle now. Those mosque and study groups that are trying to do something, you're only dealing with space, numbers, right, and a staff. But in the beginning, people went to jail and to prison for taking their children out of the public school. That was the basis. Yes. But I'll look and see if I can find some of those old notes. But I thought it was interesting. But the minister has shared with us, that information as well in many lectures where they suffered for taking their children out. Yes.
Thank you so very much. I have a question that has come in online, and this is from Sister Lisa R. Her question is for those who have taught children all the way up through high school. How did they keep their children excited about homeschool, and how or do your children battle feeling disconnected from the general social engagement with non-homeschoolers? And then this question is to Brother Troy. Would it be possible to bring together homeschooled students for a show to discuss the value and benefit, absolute necessity of homeschool education? So if anybody would like to attempt to answer that question, you may jump into it. I think that the gist of it is that this is a question about homeschooling, but it could also apply in some cases to the Muhammad University of Islam or affiliate schools.
Yes, Sister Deborah and Sister Latifa, can help me with this. The definition of a homeschool. See, what has to be understood is a homeschool means that you have a school in your home.
Yes, ma'am.
You have a school in your home, and so your children are under a structure as if they are in a school. It's not the old mom's children are homeschooling, go over here and sit down and do your work, don't finish this. But no, those children have to be brought together, instructed, how they're supposed to do something, how they're supposed to act, how much time do you have to work on this assignment. It's a school in your home. So it has to have structure.
Yes. Yes, ma'am.
Assalamu
Yes.
alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam. Yes, ma'am.
I did homeschooling with my son, and I started out exactly the way Sister Shelby talked about. A section in my house, looked like a school, homeschool. But I gradually grew to my home was the planet Earth. And I had to move my son outside of our home.
Mm-hmm.
And because it was homeschooling, I had the flexibility to do that. His curriculum was structured. His goals and objectives were structured, meeting the report card and requirements, even under me. As he said to me a few weeks ago when we were having a discussion, he said, "You even failed me." I said, "No, I didn't fail you. You did not get your work done." So all of those things, the structure of the education program I had to keep in place. But as a young man who needed to be able to go out who needed to be able to build the things that he was learning about, seeing them, touching them. We used the outside and travel. And so I enrolled him in the martial arts. He got involved in learning how to make bricks. He had to be able to be taken places so that he could express himself from
Yes.
learned in the house in the classroom, but he needed more of the outside. And because of his learning style, he was not a passive learner. He was a very, very active learner. And so I had to really stretch and find ways to be able to keep him engaged through that process. So I started out with my corners in the house, but it did grow to the larger community being his classroom.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you so very much. Sister Yvonne, did you want to add?
Yes, ma'am, I did. I wanted to say that I have an 11th grader, and he is a big motivator for me starting the school as well because he begged me last year to be homeschooled. And he was at the early college high school. So his high school campus was actually on a college, the junior college here, the campus there, and he would have graduated with his associate's degree as well as his high school diploma. But by being at the school here, I'm also able to enroll him into that same program, but he's under my authority and the instruction. He also has completed more credits here than he would have at the early college high school, and he's able to participate in his own business. He has his own business.
Mm.
And that's something, so he's happy. He's happy. He was not happy. And that's a major issue. My other son I was just talking with him last night. They attended the event because they're journalists, and he said that one of the adults was asking him about having friends, and he said he just interviewed a professional football player, and he's like, "What? Why do I need to go to public school to have friends?" And I just interviewed. I'm doing what I want to do with my life,
Mm.
and he's 13. So I was like, I mean, it amazes me the things that they say and that they do. So I would definitely suggest when we're what Sister Latifa said is when we're thinking, and Sister Shelby, I'm sorry, when we're thinking about our environment, we're trying to create an environment where our children can excel and be who Allah wants them to be.
Mm-hmm.
And that's some type of nation builder. We're trying to solve the problems that are in our community, and the current system doesn't solve the problems that we have as Black people. So we have to really analyze that when we're talking about homeschool. Homeschool is very serious, and you can cover more ground
Mhm. Mhm.
than you can. I've taught in the public school system. There's a lot of distraction. You know, you have one disruptive student, and that's just if you have one, but you could possibly have more than one. Then it throws the teacher off, it throws everything off that's going on. Transition time alone, lining up, going from class to class, that takes a lot of time away. But when you are in a structured environment that you control, you can get more done in less time. So I would definitely just suggest to anyone, and I don't really necessarily like the term homeschool, but it's becoming popular now because the messenger wanted us to establish schools. So it's really right. We're establishing a school out of our home, but we're just not supposed to be looking out for our own children. We're
Mm-hmm.
supposed to be looking out for the community. You know, so the goal, like Sister Shelby was saying, is MUI, the Muhammad University of Islam. That has to always be our goal. But we always want to start with our own children because charity begins at home and then it spreads abroad. So we want to reach out, but we do need to create opportunities for our children to join on with other people who are like-minded. so that they can stay strengthened in what we're trying to accomplish. If heredity, sometimes environment can mess up heredity. You have good intentions and you teach them, not to do certain things at home. But when you're put in a situation where you got to survive, then you have to do what you have to do in order to make it through the day. And we don't want our children to constantly be put in those type of situations. So we got to take them out of hostile environments so that we can provide the proper education for them so that we can save our people. And that's the way that I see it. But my son was the one that was really on me. He was begging and begging, and this wasn't the first time that he did that. And I have learned over these years, when you giving your children the truth and the teachings of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, they will start using that information against you if you're not following through with what we're teaching them. If we're talking about being God and we're still not practicing that, and we're nation building, but they're not seeing the development of a nation, then they say certain things, and you just have to listen to the truth. And it was the truth. So we had to make decisions in order to do what was best for our family. And I'm finding that there are many, not just believers, but there are many people who don't know, which is why I'm thankful that Brother Troy and Sister Deborah are providing opportunities, because a lot of our people don't know that they have a choice. They don't know that. They don't know what to do or how to do. They're going up to the schools. Children are being kicked out. They're being third party. We call it third party here. Placed in alternative schools. The children are just walking out of the school. Just walking out. I had my last year, I had several children just running out of the school. And they're calling on the announcements. I mean, it's all kind of things going on right now with our people, and we're suffering the most. So we have to do something. We have to do something different, because what's going on right now, it's not working. So those of us who have the means and the methods and the ways, we have to continue what we're doing. But that's my answer to the homeschool, is that to see the children happy and excited. And when I talked to a group of girls at a middle school, and I told them what I did, and they asked me, how can I go to your school? I said, well, you have to talk to your parents, and have to link on with them. But these children want something different. They want something different. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. We have another question from a Brother Mark. Brother Mark says, this is for Sister Emeritus Shelby. He says, Assalamu alaikum, Sister Shelby. You mentioned about the MUI being initially set up for pre-K to higher ed. Are there any plans being discussed to establish either a Nation of Islam community college or a curriculum for higher education degrees? Thanks, Brother Mark. So that's for you, Sister Shelby.
Thank you. I am not aware at this time if there is motion to do that. I'm not sure. But in the event that if the minister decide to go in that direction, we wouldn't have to go back and redo the paperwork. I do know that one of the foundations of going further into, I would say probably into the junior college level, you would have to have a staff person with the doctorate in education or education administration. And you have to be in it. Someone on the staff that have to have those credentials. I'm not sure if he wants to pursue it, now, but it was there. There's another area also that before the departure of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, I am also told that there had been the paperwork had been done to set up a teacher training academy or institution. I have not seen that paperwork, but I have been told that it had been done. But it was not followed through after this was done, just I guess prior to the departure of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. Yes, that's something that we certainly, the nation, and Muhammad universities, or just their mosque and study groups, could certainly benefit from.
Yes, ma'am, absolutely. Well, we once again want to invite anyone who may have a question before we close out to please send us a message. The Brother Troy, what is the number again for the, you can send a text message for this, that they can text?
And I have a question as well, but for those who have a message and want to send a text, you can send that to 773-570-0663. And so actually first, I think there was a question in there for me prior, Sister Deborah, dealing with, is it possible to bring individuals who are part of homeschooling together? And of course, by Allah's permission, we're able to use modern technology so that we can remove the barriers of time, space, distance, and we can move at a quicker pace. So definitely, we actually had a discussion about that, in particular using the tool that we're using now, Google Hangout, so that we can begin to do that and do it even more. One of the questions that I have from YouTube is from, actually there's two. There was one asked earlier by the name that's given as Dope Law. And it says, do you have classes teaching about social media on platforms like YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, etc.? That's definitely something that, Allah willing, on the Collective 9, we've been working on, really looking on how we want to move forward with launching the online courses. We have reset the start date on a few occasions, just really because of the concern of what we present. We want to make sure that it's reflective of that which we've been given, and it's a high quality product. So definitely, that's something that we, inshallah, will be doing. We should be able to do that not too distant future. I have another question from, I believe, Sister Tania Muhammad, and this is also addressed to Sister Shelby Muhammad. And it says, in the early days of Muhammad University, under your directorship, what was it about the students, staff, or curriculum that put MUI into who's who?
What was it about the curriculum and the students? I couldn't hear it all.
The students, the staff, it says students, staff, or curriculum that put MUI students into who's who.
Oh, I'm sorry. I hear you. Well, the first graduation after we opened Muhammad University of Islam was in 1992. During that time, keep in mind, this is Who's Who is like an organization that will recognize students for certain things, but it's also kind of a fundraising type of thing. It was not like a state sponsored organization. But we had students who made it to Who's Who. I think we had, it was three students. One was Brother Shaid's brother. One was my son, Raymond Muhammad. And I think there was one sister, I think that was Sister Zora Muhammad. Those students, if they were A, B students, that was a qualification. If they had maintained that average all through high school, those were the students who made that list, were inducted into that particular organization. I don't know if they still function now or not, but these were just honor roll students. And I will just briefly share that the minister always talked about students. The Honorable Elijah Muhammad said students could be out of college when they were 15, 16 years old. So the minister had heard that there were two students at the university who excelled extremely well. When they were 5th grade, they took algebra with the 9th grade students. one of those students belonged to the former editor of the Final Call, Brother Abdul Wali Muhammad. The other son belonged to his sister Shelby Muhammad. So the minister had gotten word about these students who was making this progress. And so one day I was in a meeting with the minister, and he said, well, sister, what about these students? And here I had to give him their test scores. I had to take down their grades, their test scores. And so he said, well, haven't they finished all of the subjects in the grammar school? It's like, yes, sir, but I didn't want my son to graduate. So he said, then bring them out, just like that. Like, oh my goodness. So when they graduated from high school, in the newspaper, it said that they were both 14 years old. One was 14, Brother Wali's son was 14, but my son was actually 13. He didn't turn 14 until November. So he went to college. He went through his bachelor's, but he didn't want to be the youngest. He never wanted to be the youngest child in the class. So I didn't bother him, but he would take sometimes like 2 classes a semester instead of taking a full load. But when he graduated from college, he went on through grad school. He was teaching at Chicago State in his last year of grad school. He taught math at Chicago State University for a number of years. And he left because he said the pay was so low. So he never taught school in elementary school. He came out of college teaching in college. That was my son. And I didn't want too much attention placed. That was just me. I really didn't. But his brother came out before him, and he went to Tuskegee when he first got out of college. So he came out at the average age for students finishing. But those 2 students were the youngest that had graduated from high school. And they both went on to college. One majored, my son got his master's in mathematics. The other student got a master's degree in engineering.
Thank you. That is absolutely fabulous. And we thank you all for joining us this evening. We're coming up on about 1 minute before we end the broadcast, the webinar for tonight. Once again, we thank Sister Kavan Muhammad from Fort Worth, Texas. We thank Sister Emeritus Shelby Muhammad from Chicago. And we thank Sister Latifa Muhammad from Fredericksburg, Virginia. We appreciate you all tuning in to us this evening, and we hope to bring you some more content as it relates to the new educational paradigm in the very near future. And I would like to thank you and turn it over to Brother Troy as we do our closing remarks.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you once again. Just echoing that, Sister Kavan, Sister Latifa, of course, Sister Shelby, for taking time out of your busy schedule, and just really appreciate this opportunity to share with the believers and share with those who are interested and concerned about the condition of our people, and knowing that education is definitely a tool that will free us. Of course, that's the proper. Please make sure that you subscribe to the YouTube channel. Of course, as I said, we crashed the website, but inshallah, we'll work on that and figure out what the problem is and get that back up. And before we close out, I just want to really quickly, for those who know Sister Carmen Muhammad, last year she actually was invited to the fashion show in Europe, in Italy. And she has actually been invited once again. And not only was she invited, but she was given the opportunity to invite several other Muslim designers. And as they're moving forward to this new event, they're actually looking for individuals that can help to fund this very expensive trip. If you go to actually the website, Allah willing, we'll have it back up tomorrow. But there'll be a link so that you can get more information. So please, 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 please make sure, we want to make sure that we can go represent what we've been given by the teaching of Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad in all aspects, of course, through education, but as well as our design and our program. And with that said, I look forward to the opportunity again for you to join us. And of course, once again, the important thing is that this is not just talk. We're looking forward to moving to action. So until next time, assalamu alaikum.